This video is sponsored by Bespoke Post.
2022 is right around the corner, so here's what you have to look forward to with the PS5. So I made a list of things here we can look forward to or not look forward to, and I figured I would just go down it and tell you guys what I'm excited for. So starting out with, let's talk about games, because the PS5 seems like it's finally going to start hitting its stride with having big releases every few months. We're starting out the year in February with Horizon Forbidden West, the long-awaited sequel to Horizon Zero Dawn, which came out way back in 2017. The only reason I remember that is because it came out right before my birthday, and my birthday that year was the same day that the Switch came out. It was a pretty good year for video games. I'm pretty stoked for Horizon. It seems like more Horizon to me with just a few new gameplay tweaks, and that sounds good because Horizon, as far as open world games go, did a really good job of having awesome combat and a cool world to explore. Now I know the story, a lot of people think it's incredible. I just think it's okay. I found it very predictable, like I knew everything that was going to happen in it because I've seen a sci-fi movie before, but the acting really saved it for me because all the different side characters that popped in and out of the game to help Aloy figure out what her Bluetooth headset was for were really cool, and then you had Lance Reddick being a dick to you the entire game. So it was overall pretty good. I think the story was good, not incredible. I think they learned a lot on it, and Horizon Forbidden West is where they can finally go nuts with it. Unfortunately, I'm mad that this one's coming to the PS4 because I feel like that's going to hold it back just a little bit, but then I got to think about how it started development on PS4 and was supposed to be out already, so I guess it's a wash. Either way, pretty excited for that game. I gotta give a huge shout out to today's sponsor, Bespoke Post. Bespoke Post is a monthly subscription club featuring top shelf goods from under the radar brands, and it's free to join. 90% of the products you'll get are bought from small businesses in the US, which is pretty cool, and every box has around $70 of value, but you'll only pay $45. Now, Bespoke Post has a ton of cool stuff, so when you sign up, you'll be able to take a quiz that allows them to recommend stuff you'll actually like. So each month when Bespoke Post offers you a box, you'll have the option to keep it, swap it out with another one on offer, or you can just flat out skip that month entirely for no charge, and you can cancel your subscription at any time. The first item I picked is this Weekender bag. It is awesome now that I have it in hand. It's made of thick cotton canvas, it has leather straps, it has metal on it, like it's absolutely crazy. I guess it was made for miners to carry their tools back in the day, but now I'm going to use it to transport my t-shirts back and forth from Michigan when I go see my parents for Christmas. Another item I picked is this flip knife. It's Damascus steel. I don't know what that is, but it looks very cool. It has this swirly texture on the metal, and it has a really cool blue handle, and it comes with a little leather carrying pouch and a sharpener, which is awesome. And then there's the Hibernate box, which has these comfy looking slippers that I wish I had for my trip home to Michigan because it's going to be really cold. And then finally there's the Dwell collection, which comes with this comfy looking alcove blanket. Now, if none of these boxes catch your eye, Bespoke Post offers so much more in outdoor gear, barware, home and kitchen goods, clothing. The box lineups change each month, so there's always something new to discover. To get 20% off your first box, click the link in the description and enter the code PSReady20 at checkout, or go to bspk.me/PSReady20. After that, we have God of War Ragnarok, which I'm a lot more excited for. I really liked God of War 2018. The story, again, I thought was a little overrated. It was cool how you played the entire game in one take. I thought that was actually more interesting than the actual story that was being told, but where that game got me was with its awesome combat. It was like a sweet mix between Dark Souls and God of War, like the original God of War games, and it just felt really visceral and cool, and when you died, it felt like it was always your fault. My favorite part of that game was going through the gauntlet that is the Valkyries and taking all of their helmets back to that circle of chairs, and then finally getting to fight the Valkyrie Queen. That was one of the hardest fights in any video game I've ever experienced, and it was so awesome when I finally beat her. I hope they have more hard combat moments like that in the new God of War, and I'm glad that God of War, the original in 2018, the original remake, is coming to PC because I really want to play that game again. Another game we have in the beginning of the year is obviously Elden Ring. Now I know that's a third-party exclusive, but I've played pretty much every single Souls game on the PlayStation, and Bloodborne is one of my favorite games of all time, so I feel like Elden Ring, playing it anywhere else would be stupid. I know people are super hyped for that game. Open world Dark Souls sounds really good to me. Another game that I think people are really excited for that I probably won't pick up is Gran Turismo 7. I'm more of like an arcade racer guy. When I was growing up, I was playing stuff like Need for Speed or Burnout instead of something like Gran Turismo. But we haven't had a full numbered Gran Turismo sequel in a while. This one looks like it's really going to be taking advantage of the PS5, and unlike Horizon Forbidden West, it looks like this started as a PS5 game that got turned into a PS4 game, and I like that scenario a lot better than what happened with Horizon. Another game we're supposedly getting next year is Hogwarts Legacy. This one was delayed earlier this year. It was actually supposed to be out by this point, but the reason they delayed it is because I think they saw how much actual hype there is for this game and they want to get it right. I'm a 90s kid. I love Harry Potter. I read all the books. I saw all the movies. I watched them every Christmas. I'm just excited to finally see like what a game that's outside the Harry Potter story will actually play like. Those movies they're doing right now, the Fantastic Beasts ones, not great. I think they're cool. I like being back in that world. I think this video game will probably end up being a whole lot better because if you look at the trajectory of Warner Brothers, that's usually how things seem to go. Another third-party game that I'm super hyped for is Dying Light 2. I feel like this is another game that's been delayed and delayed and delayed, but hopefully by this point they've gotten the game right. The trailer they released at the Game Awards looked really cool. I remember way back, like at E3 2018 or 2019, I saw a playable slice of this game and it looked pretty sweet. So I'm excited to finally get my hands on it. The original Dying Light has been updated since it came out, and it's one of the first games on the PS4 where I really just like dug into it from an open world perspective. That's one of the only games ever where when I finished the last side quest, it was like, congratulations, you completed every quest. And I was like, that's it? I want more. Dying Light's awesome. If you haven't played it, you should check it out, and that'll probably get you excited for Dying Light 2. And then in January 28th, we're getting the Uncharted Legacy of Thieves collection. Now, a lot of the games I've already talked about are coming out around that time, so I might wait a little while to play it, but in the PS4 generation, Uncharted 4, easily one of my favorite games. That's one of my favorite series of all time ever, period, and it came out right after I moved out here to LA, so I was just kind of like hanging out at home because I didn't have a ton of money, and I discovered this game store by my old apartment that would break street dates. So I got to play Uncharted 4 early on my PS4 when I was a little bummed out because I moved away from home. It was a great game at a great time. I'm excited to revisit it this January. So those are the games that are actually coming out next year, but there's a lot of rumored PlayStation games that I'm excited to hear more about. The first one being a ground up remake of Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. If you look at the entire Metal Gear series, the two games I want to be remade the most are the first Metal Gear Solid, which has already gotten a remake, and then Metal Gear Solid 3, because it's just such an awesome game. It has the most understandable story of the series. I really like the whole conflict between Boss and Snake. At that point, he's not Big Boss. I keep almost calling him that. You get a really cool version of Revolver Ocelot. There's some really cool motorcycle action. My favorite thing about that game is the boss fights, because there's always a cool way to knock them out instead of killing them, and you usually get a really cool item for doing it. The sleep Mosin-Nagant? I don't know how to say the gun. The sleep sniper you get from waiting for the end to die or figuring out where he's going to be and then popping up behind him and then shooting him in the back of the head with the sleep tranquilizer gun. Those are moments that I'll never forget, and doing it all over again in a PS5 version of that game sounds excellent. We're also supposedly going to see some new Silent Hill stuff. Guillermo del Toro had that really weird like head nod moment during the Game Awards that makes me think we're going to see something related to that game sooner rather than later. The Resident Evil 4 remake is in active development. It seems like that game is closer to being finished than a lot of people think it is, so if we see that next year, I'll be super stoked. I mean, Capcom really wants to make sure they have a new Resident Evil game coming out every year, so I feel like we're either going to get Resident Evil Village DLC next year, or maybe even that Resident Evil 4 remake. I'm just super excited for that. In addition to a new baseball game, San Diego Studio is apparently working on a new Uncharted game. I'm excited to see whatever that could be. I'm a little nervous that Naughty Dog apparently isn't working on it, but a new Uncharted is a new Uncharted, and again, it's Sony, so it probably won't be too bad. And then of course, I gotta know what's going on with this remake of the first Last of Us. Now apparently, this all started as an internal game inside Naughty Dog from like a support studio they had in there, and then it got switched over to the full studio proper. Speaking of The Last of Us, we also apparently have the Factions multiplayer mode coming as a full-on big multiplayer game. I'd really like to hear more about that because it's been a while since The Last of Us Part 2 came out. I would also love to see a director's cut of The Last of Us Part 2, like a new upgrade for the game that has a new chapter or something like that, and PS5 upgrades. There's a lot of stuff that's just floating around out there that I feel like Sony has to start talking about. And then if we're really lucky, we might even get a trailer for Ghost of Tsushima 2. So that basically covers the games that are coming out in 2022, but something that I think could be a lot closer than we think is the PSVR 2. Now, Sony is being really cagey about what this device actually is, but we have seen the controllers for it and they look awesome. They're basically a mix between the Oculus Touch controllers and the knuckle controllers you get with the Valve Index, and that seems like a good way to go for Sony. We've also seen them show off 8K visor lenses and screens for VR. I don't think that will end up in the actual finished product, but if they're working that far ahead, it seems like they've got this VR thing figured out. It would be awesome if they could figure out how to have it not require a PS5. Like, if you plug it into your PS5, it'll sort of work like the Oculus Link thing, where it makes the games play and look a lot better. But if you could also store the games on the actual headset and have it be a real competitor to the Oculus Quest 2, which I think is basically the best VR headset you can buy, that would be awesome. I'd love to be able to take Resident Evil 7 off the PS4, put it on this headset, and finally play that game in high resolution. Because when I talked about it in another video where I was like, yeah, I got sick and threw up from Resident Evil 7, a lot of other people in the comments said the same thing. And you know, if the PSVR 2 does come out next year, that would be a great time for Capcom to update Resident Evil Village to have a full-on VR mode. Now again, we don't really know a whole lot about the PSVR 2 headset, but I can personally guarantee you it'll probably be black and white. In terms of when it comes out, I feel like next Christmas season is a great time to release something like this. We all know they're not going to have a PS5 Slim or PS5 Pro ready for the end of next year, so having a PSVR 2 ready to go would probably be smart. In terms of price, this is something they really need to figure out, because if this is a headset that requires itself to be plugged into the PS5 to use, they cannot charge more than the Oculus Quest 2, because at the end of the day, that's a headset you can take wherever you want, and that thing's around $300 or $400 depending on which one you get. So it has to be around that price, but if they make it like an Oculus Quest 2 where you can actually like save PlayStation games to the headset, I feel like that's where they can get in the territory of charging a little bit more for it, because you've got screens, you've got storage space, and you've got portability. And speaking of portability, while we do know that Sony is not working on a new Vita because they're stupid, they are working on like a DualShock 4 cut in half that you can use like as a Joy-Con type deal on your phone. I'm assuming that would be for like PlayStation Now or Remote Play from your PS5, but if they could figure out a way to make a new Vita, that would make me personally very happy. One thing that I do not think is going to get better next year is availability of the PS5. So we had a bunch of news stories about Sony saying, yep, we think things are going to get better next year, chip making is getting a lot better, but then we had stories very recently where Sony cut down the amount of PS5s they think they're going to be able to make just because of all these shortages. So while it's still extremely hard to get a PS5 a whole year later, I think it's going to stay hard to get one going into next year. And unfortunately, this isn't the situation that's like the Wii, where Nintendo intentionally held back a ton of Wiis to drive up the like demand of it, so whenever it showed up in stores they would sell out instantly. This is like Sony can't make enough PS5s to meet demand, and eventually they will get to that point. I just unfortunately don't think it's going to be next year. Something else I don't really think we're going to see next year is a full-on special edition console. I think Xbox kind of screwed up by putting out that Xbox Halo Edition Series X, because the Xbox Series X is also extremely hard to get, while the Xbox Series S, you can just walk into a store and buy whenever you want. So splitting the difference that much by having a whole different SKU of the console just didn't really seem like a smart move to me, even though that console is really cool. And the fact that Sony can't make enough base PS5s as it is on their own, it seems like splitting it up that way to have a custom collector's edition of the PS5 to go along with like Horizon Forbidden West or God of War Ragnarok, I just don't see that exactly happening. What I do see happening though is collector's edition plates that come out alongside these games. So when Horizon Forbidden West comes out, you've got Horizon plates you can go spend $60 on. When The Last of Us Part 2's multiplayer mode comes out, we finally get The Last of Us Part 2 director's cut plates to go alongside with it. You know, it seems like a really easy way to split the difference between collector's editions, which are extremely expensive and difficult to produce, and giving people a really cool way to customize their console to make it look like the games that they're actively playing. I mean, hell, they could also come out with new controllers to go along with this, and then you don't have to buy a whole new console every time you want a special edition look on your machine. Something we do get to look forward to though is a competitor to Game Pass. We heard this big leak recently about a service called PlayStation Spartacus, and it does sound a lot cooler in my opinion in terms of the games we're going to get. So instead of getting full-on PS5 games released day one on this service, we're just going to be getting a tiered subscription service that allows us to play PS3, PS2, and PS1 games, and then eventually they'll start adding PS4 and PS5 games to it as time goes on. Now the reason I think that's better than what you get on Game Pass, which is day one AAA exclusives, is the fact that we are already seeing these games that end up on Game Pass change to accommodate how much money they're losing. Like Halo Infinite, for example, the way the Battle Pass and the multiplayer work in that game is a complete joke. And even when you're in the main single player campaign and you're finding these like Spartan lockers that give you cosmetics, when you open them up and it says you're getting new armor cosmetics, right? But then you go into the multiplayer and it's new like paint for your visor or something like that. You never really get armor cores, which are like the thing that actually changes how your armor actually looks. And also the fact that when they have events like this Tenrai event. It's basically split up over 5 full weeks. It's a 35 tier separate battle pass, and the only way to compete it is to play all 5 of those weeks. That's the stuff I really don't like that we're seeing as a consequence of Game Pass. This Sony Spartacus thing is a cool way to compete with it, give you an ability to play upscaled old games, but not really break the bank for Sony in terms of dumbing down their games to make them viable on a streaming service type deal. Like if they're gonna put older stuff like Demon's Souls and Returnal on there, I think that's just fine, but yeah, putting day one stuff like Horizon on there just seems crazy. They don't need to do that. People are spending $70 for their games. The next thing I think we might see by the end of this year, but we'll definitely see it in 2022, is VRR support. You guys have heard me explain what variable refresh rate is a million times here on this channel, but basically it stops screen tearing, and not having it is making me wish I had it, right? It's something you never feel like you need until you don't have it. That's what VRR is. And then another thing they have to support, hopefully by the end of this year, but definitely next year, is 1440p. It's the best resolution. A lot of their games run in 1440p, but if you plug your PS5 into a 1440p monitor, it'll output 1080p. What is that? Why did you release the console that way, and why haven't you fixed it yet, Sony? Thankfully, we've heard a ton of leaks from insiders and TV manufacturers that say, yep, Sony's got this ready. They're just waiting to see how many TVs are going to support it next year, and then they'll decide when they're going to release it. And while they're at it, I really think they should figure out a way to start including themes on the PS5. I think the way the UI is laid out at this point with all the updates it's gotten looks really good. They just got to figure out a way to make it more customizable. I'm really sick of the first thing I see when I turn on my PS5 being a bunch of ads for Fortnite. They got to figure out how to just make it my personal theme that I want to have on the console. And the last thing that I don't think we're going to see, but I'd love to be wrong on, is an official competitor to the Xbox Elite controller. We've seen Sony step into this like little pool a couple times now at this point. We got that back pedal attachment for the DualShock 4 like a month before the PS5 came out. I'd love to see Sony release that for the PS5, you know, that you can use on your DualSense to have some extra buttons on the back of it. And I'd also love to see, again, a full-on Pro Ultimate controller made by Sony. We have options like the SCUF controller, we've got the Hex controller, friend of the channel Cody makes his own custom LED controllers, but having an official one from Sony, I feel like that's just something that they can make a ton of money on, and make people really happy. It feels like they're leaving money on the table with that, and I'd love to see it happen. So that's everything that's going to happen in 2022 with the PS5, and a few things that I want to happen with it. Is there anything I missed? Make sure you let me know down in the comments below, and remember to subscribe and set your notifications to all if you haven't already. As always, guys, my name is Jimmy Champagne, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.